Hello and welcome everyone to our next episode of Help and Trade podcast, where we give space to entrepreneurs and their startups. My today's guest is Jesse. Jesse is an entrepreneur from Netherlands who is now currently living in Switzerland. We'll get to all his entrepreneurial path in a time, but please, Jesse, introduce yourself and the stage is yours.
Thanks, Stefan. My name is Jesse. I'm Dutch, but I was born in the US, and I'm currently living in Basel with my girlfriend. And 6 months ago, I started a company called Pocket Revolutions. And what Pocket Revolutions does is we help companies go from the idea stage to the product stage. So anywhere in between, I help companies solve their problems there.
Great. Now, I read quite a bit about you, your website, your LinkedIn profile. I did my part of research. And I found something very interesting. You actually started your entrepreneurial path before you even started to study. That's when you did Jesse Design, I think.
JSE Design. Yes, that's right. Wow, that is a long time ago. You've caught me off guard there. So this was during my studies at university. I started in 2005, and then I started freelancing as a web designer. And I didn't really enjoy it too much, especially the business part of it. I did enjoy the creative part and fooling around with technology. That was pretty cool. But then dealing with clients that had no idea what they wanted, that wasn't very attractive. So it never really turned into a sustainable business.
All right. That means we can actually skip that topic, Jesse Design.
Well, I mean, it's part of the story, but yeah, it's interesting. I don't know where you found that though.
I have my resources. Yeah. Let's put it this way. Now I find it very interesting because it actually shows that you had that entrepreneurial spirit in you. That's why I actually wanted to approach the topic. I liked it very much. When I found it, I was like, wow, actually so early you already get the first steps. Because usually when I have guests here, I ask them what was their path to entrepreneurship. And in your case, it's pretty clear. It was always there. The next step, when you went through studies and you went for studies of physics. And even there you did something entrepreneurial. The company called PinkCoin.
PinkCoin, yeah. So PinkCoin is now actually more alive than ever. What happened was I studied physics, but I studied it more because I wasn't sure what to study. I knew I probably had a pretty good pair of brains, and I thought, I should use that to do something challenging. And people were telling me when you study physics, you can sort of transition into anything. So then I studied physics, but then towards the end of my degree, I saw all these people starting startups. I was reading TechCrunch. I was in California in my master's, and I didn't see the same possibilities within physics to be able to do something like that, to start a company and to have all this leverage that these guys in laptops seem to have. So towards the end of my degree, I realized I want to move more towards IT. I want to do something with software. And then my dad came up with this idea, or he had a question really. If you could recognize whether a gold or silver coin is real based on the sound that it produces. This is sort of a physics question, but there was also an entrepreneurial opportunity there to create something that would allow you to do that. So me and my brothers, we got interested in this idea, and then we tried to start a startup doing this. I mean, start a startup sounds kind of fancy. It was me moving back in with my parents for almost a year and sort of plugging away at trying to figure out the machine learning and doing all this stuff. We didn't start with a mobile app. We started with a web app, and in the end, made almost every mistake you can think of, and it didn't really take off. Didn't really even solve the initial problem. But yeah, those were my first steps in entrepreneurship, I guess.
But the idea itself, is it actually plausible?
It depends how you formulate the problem. I think one of the mistakes that we made is we formulated it as, given a sound of an unknown coin, can you determine which coin it is and if that coin is authentic? And that's a much too difficult problem to solve. Because it turns out that, if you've got a fat coin with a small diameter, some of these coins, given certain material parameters, are going to sound the same as a much thinner coin with a larger diameter. So there's overlap between those, so you won't be able to distinguish. And we were really set in that mindset of trying to make that distinction just based on the sound, because we thought it would be really cool if you just, pinged this coin and then the app would somehow tell you which coin it is. But that was too difficult. What ended up happening was that in such a niche space where you wouldn't expect any competitors, that someone showed up who did not go with a web app, went with a mobile app. And this is in the early days of mobile applications. And his approach was completely different, was basically you tell the app first which coin you want to test, much like you would do any other test on a coin. So let's say measuring the diameter, like you look up, okay, which type of coin am I measuring the diameter of? And then you look up what is the diameter of that coin supposed to be, and then you measure it, right? And then the same way, he had this app where you select the coin, and then it tells you what to expect in terms of the sound, in terms of the frequency spectrum, and then you test it, and then it gives you some type of feedback. And so that sort of, blew me away, because that was a completely different approach to the same problem, much easier approach. In hindsight, makes much more sense. And he came out with an app, and that sort of coincided with the end of that first attempt. But there was a second attempt.
And that is successful as of now. PinkCoin is alive.
PinkCoin is alive, yeah, it's sort of like a second life. So what ended up happening was that I invested a lot of time thinking about this weird problem, and having a lot of accumulated knowledge and a lot of effort on my part, and then nothing to show for it. And that kept eating at me in sort of, my subconscious or in the back of my brain. And I always had this idea of, giving it another go, but then in a different way. And then not even for, some type of potential monetary gain, but just to solve the problem, or just to, do something, take what you invested and turn that into something tangible. So what happened was, many years later, I had this opportunity, in between jobs. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to learn Android programming, because what made the most sense. And I had a lot of time to think about what made the most sense. The same approach as this other guy was doing, just way better user experience, more coins, the ability for people to add coins, stripped that down to like the core MVP features, and then just started learning Android, started learning Java. And then as soon as my job started, I could make my way with those two. And every morning I would wake up at like 4:30 and coding before work. And then I would go to work and then come back exhausted, and then next day again. And then I think after my 8-month contract was at an end, I had something that, sort of worked. And then since then, I've just been tweaking that, improving that, and slowly getting some traction. I think I have 1,000 active users now. And it's a neat little side project, especially now as like more or less an app agency that I can show, like, look, this is the stuff we can do. I haven't shown you yet, but
No. Can you just quickly elaborate? How does it work actually?
How does which part work? How does it work for the user, or how does it work behind the scenes?
How does it work for the user?
So what the user does, they have a certain coin. So I don't know if you're familiar with coins, but let's say you've got a 1 troy ounce gold Krugerrand, and you want to know, is this authentic gold or not? You open up the app. There's a list of coins. You select the Krugerrand, and then it will show you a frequency spectrum, and it will also plot the current sort of sound level. So it's recording something. It also has 3 bars, and these are threshold bars corresponding to the 3 frequencies that we know that fall within the human hearing range, and that are also picked up by the smartphone microphone. And these thresholds are set by me by analyzing a bunch of these Krugerrand coins. And so okay, this is the noisy spectrum now. Before I touch the coin, there's these 3 locations where something should happen. So then you strike the coin, then it makes like this very nice high-pitched sound, which corresponds with those 3 threshold bars. And then they turn green, and there's a modal that pops up and says, oh, successful, this is a authentic Krugerrand coin.
The only challenge I see there is that when you spin the coin, it must not fall off the table.
Sure, but you don't spin it. This is such a niche topic that I forget that how I need to introduce it properly to people. But what you end up doing is you place it on your finger, balance on your finger. So what happens is that the coin is able to vibrate in a way that the center of the coin stays static. So the sides sort of vibrate like a pancake, you can imagine. And it makes a long sustained noise. So the coin shouldn't fall unless you hit it too hard.
All right. I'm impressed. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't know if you should be, but thank you.
And so the use case for it actually, that people really are checking on their coins. Is there a lot of faking in coins happening?
Well, there has been more and more faking. It sort of goes hand in hand with the gold price and the silver price. So now that's on the rise again. So then there tends to be more news of fakes coming out. One of the things that we discovered researching this topic was that it's practically impossible to make a gold coin that's counterfeit, that also more or less weighs the same, looks the same, has the same dimensions, and also produces any type of sound. Because gold is so uniquely dense that the only material you can use to come close is tungsten or depleted uranium. So the depleted uranium you're not going to use. Tungsten you might be able to use, but tungsten has a completely different sound, which almost sounds like a dud. So even if you have a fake gold coin, which we had, it will be obvious to anyone that this is not a real coin. Silver is a different matter though, because with silver you can have all kinds of combinations that have very comparable weight, and they look the same. They might even have a silver layer, and they even produce a sound. And the sound will be different, but it will be similar enough that the untrained ear won't be able to tell the difference.
I hope we just didn't give a tip to scammers.
Maybe, yeah.
All right, moving from PinkCoin, because I think we'll get back to it. I really like this topic. You progressed in your career furthermore towards football, if I understood well. You worked for FIFA.
I did, yeah.
How was that?
Very interesting. We can start with the parts that I liked. I liked that it's a very international working environment. And I liked that I sort of have an international past. My parents put me in a European school in Belgium, which meant that I was always exposed to a lot of different influences, and I was born in the US and then lived in Belgium and Netherlands. So international settings somehow felt natural. But at FIFA, what was interesting was that it's not like the classical sanctioned, for instance, EU international flavor. To give you an example, they recognize Palestine as a full member, which other international organizations have some difficulty doing. To me, I thought that was really interesting because that sort of shows that there's different incentives and they're trying to be, I guess, neutral in a different way. And I thought that was also quite fair in some other ways. So yeah, the international aspect is really, really cool. You get to work on projects that are quite unique.
The project you worked on was exchange of players, if I understood well. Creating a platform to handle that. Can you actually speak about it? Is that not a corporate secret?
It is. I think I can touch on it briefly on what it was, but I can't go into much detail.
Sure.
But the original idea was called GPX, the Global Player Exchange. And one of the core features was to create a platform for clubs to exchange players and to more or less remove the middleman. So in this case, the football agent from the equation.
So interesting. Pity we cannot talk more about it, but nevertheless, moving on from working for FIFA, you worked there as an employee. You moved on then to freelancing for a while. And there you transitioned to products and design of products, specifically digital products. How was that? How did you like it? And I suppose you had to like it because you stayed with it as of now. Also, your company that you run now does design of products for the clients. So how was it, and what made you actually go that direction? It's quite a change from physics or from web design or working for an international corporation to go actually freelancing in product design.
The way I see it is slightly different because I started my career in tech, I guess, with PinkCoin. And then after that wasn't successful, I moved to Switzerland and got my first job doing more or less analytics and like some basic data science for a web startup. And then from there, I got offered a product position within that same company, which I wasn't really looking for, but, I was just trying to do a good job, and then grew into that. And then from there on, it just became more and more apparent that working with product was what I was good at. It was sort of a mix of a lot of different skill sets, that I had or that I was interested in developing. But I always felt that my superiors or the company weren't, moving fast enough or were restricting me or not seeing the same opportunities as I was. And I always had this entrepreneurial spirit in me that wanted to do something. So for me, it was just a matter of timing, like when would I make another attempt? Starting a company like Pocket Revolutions, I'm now able to practice those same skills, get better at them, and help other people launch successful products, and at the same time create some space for myself to do the same. So it's just like a love for mostly digital products that has just grown and grown.
You came here as a complete foreigner. You had no previous skills and you right away went into entrepreneurship and opening up your company. How was it for you? What are the challenges for anyone who wants to do the same?
Well, I have to say that I got very lucky because my girlfriend, she became friends with someone in Basel who became the person that funded the AG that I founded. So without that, none of this would have been possible. My advice would be try to, make that happen somehow. I'm not sure how. In my case, it was just having the desire and then just, through luck being connected to the right person. And I would also say that because he's connected to other people that know how to set up companies, know what to do, I've been able to stay out of much of the sort of difficult details and, bureaucratic stuff and documents. So I've been lucky enough that I can really focus on creating value and finding new clients.
Is the client facing different in Switzerland than, for example, in Netherlands?
The Swiss are quite different, yeah. I'm not sure if they know themselves, but in my opinion, the Swiss they're less direct than the Dutch, and this they probably know. But I also think that you need to treat them in a certain, somewhat careful way, more so than I think the Dutch.
But it doesn't hinder you in doing business.
No, of course not. I think it's interesting. I like the Swiss a lot, their culture and the way of doing things. But it does take some experience to really to figure out, what's going on with it. Why is he not replying now? That kind of stuff.
Interesting question from my part. When you design a product for a client, does it work somehow different in Switzerland in comparison to other countries? Because of, for example, cultural differences or because the information is communicated differently? Is there some sort of a struggle because of that? Or it is just as straightforward as anywhere else because we talk about digital products?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if I have enough experience within Switzerland to comment on that. But I do think in general, the Swiss are conservative, across the board. Technology field and the product field moves very fast. So if you want to introduce something new, say, the design sprint is this concept that came out of Google Ventures where you test and prototype an idea within a week. That's a pretty new concept. If you want to introduce that to a company that's trying to do something that's trying to take an idea to a product, and you're going to say, give me your entire team in a room for a week and then line up 10 customer interviews, and then we're going to come up and test a product concept within that week. That's quite radical for them. But it would also be, in other places. But I think particularly in Switzerland, some of these things are, they're a bit old-fashioned.
Sounds very fascinating to me indeed. So what are your plans for 2020 with Pocket Revolutions?
Well, right now I want to finish the website so that people can find everything they need on there and showcase our existing case studies. And my goal for 2020 for the company is to get involved with 5 different applications that I want to, ones that I'm not involved with now. So that could be creating 5 new ones, or that could be getting involved at the idea stage with some, strategy in others. But I would like to get involved with 5 different products.
Now, probably a burning question would be, if you're in a business of your sort, that you are trying to create a prototype for your clients, before there actually is real proof for the need, for example, how do you go on business-wise? Do you actually have to go in pre-financing the entire idea before you actually have the proof of concept? Or do you actually accept only clients that have the proof of concept in their hands, and only after it is actually market-proof and bulletproof, you go on with developing a prototype for them? Is there a decision that you have to make up on the spot, or it really comes down also to the idea itself?
What I like to do is to start with a scoping exercise, and there's a fixed rate for the scoping exercise. So if it's at the stage where it's just an idea, then we probably need to do that exercise just to see what are the implications of the idea, what are the constraints, and then come up with some experiments, that kind of stuff, to see where we're at. And only then can I make sort of a more substantiated judgment on is this a project that we can even do together. Because I only take projects where I can see a potential path to success, and I believe that Pocket Revolutions can make contribution to that success. So I want projects that I can see being successful, and then I want part of that. We take a stake, not literally, but we try to commit to the same success metrics that the client has. So if it is a project and we see it's not going to be successful, we're not going to take it. I want projects where I can see this is, we believe in this and we're going to commit to this with you, and then let's make it happen. That's sort of our philosophy.
Do you also go into partnership with your clients, where, for example, you deliver certain value in exchange for percentage of equity, or that's a no-go?
I haven't done that yet. What I have done is we set fixed prices, so not bill by the hour. We try to estimate what is the value that's being created by this for the client, and then we base our price off of that. So this is to avoid, for instance, that a client maybe thinks he has a great idea and we estimate the value, and the value is less than what it would cost. And then that's not a project that we would do, but for sure they can find people that will do it for them, but we say no to that.
Also sounds like you need to actually invest a lot of time, also your own effort, in order just to do the estimate, for example. The first initial plan, that also costs a lot of time. That is also combined with money, of course, your own. I don't think it's an easy business.
I think it is an easy business because I enjoy it. So I enjoy estimating, what is this going to look like and how much value is it going to bring, because you have to dig into this business and understand how it works and what they're trying to do, or what kind of impact they're trying to make in the market, which is more difficult to estimate, but I think it's fun.
And so, Pocket Revolutions, how big is your team as of now?
Well, I keep saying we, but right now it's currently just me in Switzerland. I've got a network of some freelancers that I can sort of scale up and scale down. But right now it's just me.
Got it. And so you said you want to be involved with 5 apps this year?
Yeah.
That means in a case you want to scale up, you're going to have to get more people aboard, get more people interested.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly. Do you have your own tap of freelancers that you know that you can never run out of those, or do you actually always have to look around on the market for new human resources in that case?
It's a bit in between. So I've got some guys that I know I can probably ping them for a job, even short notice. But at the same time, I could get a bit unlucky. They might have something else going, and then I would have to look on the market or, through their network. So I would say it's a bit in between.
Now, if you don't mind, I would really love to go back to PinkCoin.
Sure.
I just really like the idea. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm glad you like it.
Because even though I'm giving you questions and even though I'm listening to you, I'm actually thinking the whole time, like, this PinkCoin idea, there should be a way how you could scale it endlessly, where you could actually sell it as a concept to some sort of, let's say, national bank. They have to have their own ways how to prove a coin is real or not. You could essentially do the same where, for example, business owners, small business owners, they have to get rid of coins regularly, and they send them to the bank. Through the bank, then it goes to the national bank, and partially the coins go back to the market, and some of them get recycled in that sense. It would be interesting to know if there is actually a mechanism in that process which checks whether the coins are real or fake.
Are you talking about normal francs and euros?
Yes, normal coins.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables that come into the picture then, because technique is as good as the sort of the consistency of the coin. So if you have a coin like the euro, for instance, it's minted by different mints, I think with slightly different specifications. This famous case in Austria where they had these parking meters that were calibrated to a certain weight for euro coins, then the euro coins that were circulating there did not come from the same mint where they had calibrated it from. So none of the parking meters worked. So there's the tolerances for these coins is larger than most of the coins I work with. Moreover, when these coins need to be authenticated, they don't tend to use this method because I think the strength of the method is not so much its accuracy. It's an augmenting method. Just like someone that's interested in testing a coin will always use multiple tests. And this is just another test in your arsenal to help improve the accuracy. But if you're some type of official government instance and you're testing the coin, I think they do like a magnet test and the weight, and they might even have like a XRF spectroscopy where they like scan the coin with X-rays. Then you know enough. Then you don't need to test the sound. So I never thought those were my target market. I've come to believe my target market is more the private collector with the untrained ear that maybe is going to a coin fair that wants, additional security, additional peace of mind in his pocket. And then it is quite handy because it's easier to carry than, say, a scale or a caliper to measure the coin. And even if you do carry those, this is again an augmentation to those tests. So, and this is also the feedback I'm getting is from people that are testing coins they want to buy, or they're using it to test their collection at home. So they go through all their coins.
Really fascinating. All this topic about coins is really, really scratching my brain. Did you know actually the reason for rimming on the side of the coin?
I do, yeah.
I like that story very much.
It's to battle counterfeiting. Do you know why a coin is round?
Why?
I believe it's just because of the minting process, because it was just minted with the big hammer in the beginning, and so you had this blob of metal that would just go in different directions.
So it was round.
If you look at the Roman coins, they were not perfectly round, but sort of. And then I guess because the coins needed to be recognizable, so then I think they got more and more consistent with.
Yes, definitely. And then the rimming came because people were chipping off the metals from it.
It's actually interesting because there's a long history of anti-counterfeiting technology in coins. So that's, one of the first iterations. But now the Canadian Mint, they have these embedded holograms with some type of unique ID per coin that they put in there, and you need a special machine to read it. And this is the highest security you can have on coins. The ping test still works on those.
Wow, that's interesting. That's really fascinating. Getting back to entrepreneurship. If you had someone here that you would like to give a question, some sort of professional, someone who could help you out, who would it be and what would be the question?
I guess a couple of names come to mind. I really like Nathan Barry. He's the founder of a company called ConvertKit. And I like him because he also wrote a book called Authority. And his book is excellent. It's about how writing has multiple beneficial effects if you start doing it and you start publishing your writing. Because it not only clarifies your thoughts, but it establishes you as an authority. And it's sort of the starting point for generating other types of content, like learning material, which then you can sell. And it creates serendipity because everything you put out there is like more surface area for you on the internet. So you get interactions with other people. So his book is excellent. And then his progression in business, online business is also I really admire. And I would like to ask him some questions if I could. That would probably be my choice.
And with this, I would also like to ask you for some departing remarks, if there are any. And also, where can people actually find you, connect with you, social media accounts, etc.? Please name them.
Sure. So anybody or any business that's interested in taking an idea to the point where it's a successful product, I'm interested in helping because I know it's a very exciting process, but it's also a process that's fraught with many risks, and I want you to be successful. So we've got some experience there to help with that. You can visit us on pocketrevolutions.com. My personal Twitter is JesseMS. You can reach me there. My DMs are always open, and that's it.
Well, thank you, Jesse. I really appreciate you being here. And if any of our listeners have any questions, please reach out to Jesse or me and I'll give you the contact. And also, please stay tuned and connect with us via social media, where you can find us on Facebook following Help and Trade, or you can go on our website, helpandtrade.com. And freshly, we actually published our own application, helpandtrade.com as well. So please connect with us, try our stuff, and let us know your thoughts. And thank you very much for listening. And bye-bye.
Thanks, Stefan.
Bye-bye.